The great council hall buzzed with the usual sounds of another monthly meeting. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the massive chamber. Some floated in energy bubbles, others sat on specially made chairs for their strange body shapes. The air smelled of different worlds: sweet flowers from the plant people, metal oil from the robot species, and the clean scent that always followed humans around. Ambassador Hyunwoo walked to the speaking platform with his usual calm steps. He carried a simple data pad, nothing fancy like the glowing crystals or floating screens other species used. The human looked ordinary compared to the tall blue ethereals with their glowing eyes, or the massive rock-like titans that needed special platforms to hold their weight. "Monthly report from Earth Sector," Hyunwoo said in his clear voice. He spoke without the dramatic gestures other ambassadors love to use. "Trade routes are running at 98.7% efficiency. Pirate activity down 15% from last cycle. Research stations have completed their quarterly uploads to the Galactic database." The council secretary, a snake-like being named Vexitari, made notes on his crystal tablet. Something felt different about the human's words today, but he could not place what it was. Hyunwoo spoke the same way he always did: professional, exact, boring. "Defense patrols in sectors 7 through 15 completed without incident," Hyunwoo continued. "All early warning systems functioning normally. Medical supply deliveries to outer colonies finished ahead of schedule." He paused for just a moment. "This concludes humanity's final report to the council." A few alien heads turned at the word "final," but most were already thinking about the next speaker. Humans always used precise language. They probably meant final report of the month or the quarter. When the meeting ended, Hyunwoo approached Vextari's desk. "I need to file an official document," he said, holding out a sealed data crystal. Vextari took it without much interest. Official documents came in every day. "What type of filing?" "Treaty withdrawal notice," Hyunwoo replied calmly. "Humanity is formally ending its participation in all galactic agreements effective immediately." The crystal slipped from Vextari's clawed hand and clattered on the floor. "What did you say?" But Hyunwoo was already walking away, his footsteps echoing in the emptying chamber. 3 star systems away, Dr. Sojin finished uploading the last of her research files to the Galactic database. 30 years of work on alien diseases, new medicines, and biological threats, all freely shared with every species in the galaxy. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard, making sure every piece of data was properly labeled and easy to find. "Are you sure about this?" asked her assistant, a young human named Kijun. "This research could save millions of lives." Sojin nodded without looking up from her screen. "That's exactly why we're leaving it all here. They'll need it more than we will." She pressed the final upload button and watched terabytes of irreplaceable medical knowledge flow into the galactic network. Then she began deleting all the local copies from her lab computers. The equipment would stay, but the detailed notes, the failed experiments that taught valuable lessons, the shortcuts that took years to discover, all of that existed only in human minds now. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Minho sat in his command chair aboard the patrol ship Steady Hand. His crew was finishing their last sweep of the Outer Rim territories, checking for smugglers and pirates in the dangerous space between civilized worlds and the unknown dark. "Contact bearing 045, sir," reported his sensor officer. "Looks like a small raider group hitting a cargo convoy." Minho studied the tactical display. 3 pirate ships attacking a defenseless merchant vessel. Standard procedure was to move in, disable the attackers, and escort the convoy to safety. He had done this hundreds of times over his 20-year career. "All ships move to intercept," he ordered. "Standard formation." The brief fight lasted only minutes. The pirates fled when they saw military ships coming, as they always did. The merchant captain, a grateful crystalline being, thanked them over the communication system. "Safe travels," Minho replied. "This patrol route will be unmonitored after next week. I suggest finding alternate shipping lanes." The crystalline's faceted head tilted in confusion, but Minho had already cut the connection. Engineer Hee-jin stood on the observation deck of Defense Platform Alpha 7, looking out at the stars. The massive station floated in space near the vulnerable world of New Harmony, home to the peaceful flower people who had no weapons of their own. The platform's enormous guns could destroy entire fleets, and its shields could protect the planet below from almost any attack. Her team had spent the last 3 days teaching the local defense force how to operate the station. It was not easy. The flower people were kind and gentle, but they did not understand war. They kept asking why anyone would want to hurt others. "Remember," she told Commander Petalsong for the 10th time, "if the red lights flash, that means enemies are coming. Press this button to activate the shields. This lever controls the main guns. The computer will help you aim." Petalsong's soft pink face wrinkled with worry. "But what if we make a mistake? What if we hurt innocent people?" Heejin placed a gentle hand on the alien's shoulder. "The computer is very smart. It won't let you fire unless it's sure the targets are hostile. Just trust it, and trust yourself." She did not tell Petalsong that the computer's intelligence came from human programming, or that it needed constant updates and maintenance to work properly. Some things were better left unsaid. Back on Earth, the great evacuation continued quietly. Spaceports that had been busy for centuries now filled with departing ships. But there were no crowds, no panic, no desperate scenes. Humans packed their belongings methodically, said goodbye to alien friends and colleagues, and left without fuss. Many aliens living on Earth asked to come along, but they were gently refused. "Where we're going, you wouldn't be happy," was all the humans would say. The news networks barely covered the exodus. Humans leaving was not considered important news. They had always been the quiet ones, the steady workers, the people who fixed problems without making speeches about it. Their departure was just another minor political event in a galaxy full of more exciting stories. In the council hall, Vextari finally read the formal withdrawal notice. The legal language was clear and proper, giving no reasons, making no complaints. Humanity simply stated that they were ending all treaties, withdrawing from all joint operations, and leaving galactic space entirely. He brought the document to Council President Zorthan, a wise old being who had led the galaxy for 50 years. "Should we try to stop them?" Vextari asked. Zorthan's ancient eyes studied the crystal tablet. "Why would we? Humans are useful but not essential. The galaxy managed fine before they arrived. It will manage fine after they leave." The president was wrong, but no one knew it yet. As the last human ships disappeared into the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge, they left behind a civilization that had no idea how much it depended on them. The council continued its meetings, trade flowed as usual, and life went on, normally for now. 3 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the galaxy's edge. Council President Zorthan felt pleased with how smoothly things were running. Trade continued, planets remained peaceful, and the various species seemed to be working together just fine without human involvement. That changed on a Tuesday morning when Admiral Zethrak burst into the president's office, his blue skin darker than usual with stress. "We have a problem," the ethereal admiral announced, spreading holographic star charts across the president's desk. "Pirates. Everywhere." Zorthan studied the red dots marking attacks across the galaxy. "This is unusual. The shipping lanes have been safe for decades. 17 convoys hit in the last week alone," Zethrak continued. "The raiders are using some kind of jamming technology that blocks our psychic abilities. We can't read their minds, can't predict their moves, can't even sense where they are until they're already attacking." The president frowned. "What about our patrol fleets? That's the other problem. We're down 60% on patrol coverage. Turns out most of our regular routes were being handled by human ships. When they left, they didn't transfer those duties to anyone else. They just stopped patrolling." Zethrak pulled up another display showing the galaxy's shipping routes. Large sections were now marked in yellow for unprotected space. The gaps formed a pattern that no one had noticed before. Humans had been covering all the dangerous areas, the routes that other species found too risky or unprofitable to patrol. "Why didn't anyone realize this sooner?" Zorthan asked. The admiral's expression grew more troubled. "Because they never made a big deal about it. No reports about heroic battles, no requests for medals or recognition. They just quietly kept the space lanes safe. While the leadership dealt with piracy, ordinary citizens across the galaxy began noticing other problems. On the agricultural world of Verdania, Farmer Bloombright watched his crops turning yellow and dying. The grain that fed 3 star systems was failing, and no one knew why. Dr. Pollen Sweet, the planet's best plant scientist, examined the withering stalks in confusion. "The soil chemistry is all wrong," she reported to the Planetary Council. "The bacterial balance that keeps our Earth healthy is falling apart." "What changed?" asked Governor Leaf Dance. "Nothing that we can see. The weather has been normal. No new diseases, no changes in our farming methods." Pollen Sweet held up a handful of gray dirt. "But this soil used to be rich and dark. Look at it now." What they didn't know was that Dr. Yunji's agricultural team had been secretly maintaining the soil health for over a century. Human-designed bacteria kept the earth fertile, human-made nutrients fed the crops, and human monitoring systems watched for problems before they became disasters. When the humans left, they took their knowledge with them, but the tiny living things they had put in the soil were slowly dying without proper care. Similar problems appeared on dozens of worlds. The crystal farms that produced memory storage for computers began producing flawed crystals. The deep-sea mining operations that gathered rare metals found their equipment breaking down in ways that made no sense. The orbital factories that built everything from starships to household items experienced mysterious malfunctions. In every case, the aliens who ran these operations discovered that humans had been quietly maintaining critical systems. Not the obvious things like running the factories or piloting the ships. Other species could do those jobs. It was the small technical details that kept everything working smoothly. The humans had fixed problems before they became emergencies, updated software before it became outdated, and maintained equipment before it broke down. Trade Coordinator Rian faced a different crisis in her luxurious office on Central Station. Her desk was covered with angry messages from species across the galaxy, all complaining about each other. "The Crystalline Consortium refuses to sell memory cores to the Molten Empire," reported her assistant, a nervous gaseous being named Wisp Thought. "They claim the Molten Empire's new trade terms are insulting." Rian rubbed her temples. "What do the Molten Empire representatives say?" "That the crystallines are being unreasonable and they'll find other suppliers." "But there are no other suppliers. The crystallines are the only ones who can grow the special crystals." Before Rian could respond, another message arrived. "The gas giant collectives are cutting off rare element exports to everyone," Wisp Thought announced. "They say other species have been taking advantage of them for too long." "This is insane," Rian muttered. "These species have been trading peacefully for centuries. What changed?" She began digging through old trade records, looking for patterns. What she found surprised her. In almost every major trade dispute over the past 300 years, the final resolution had been negotiated by human mediators. Not as official arbitrators. Humans had never held high positions in the trade organization, but as quiet go-betweens who helped angry species find compromises. Humans had a talent for understanding what each species really wanted beneath all the posturing and cultural pride. They could talk to the warrior-like Molten Empire about honor and strength, while explaining to the peaceful crystallines about the importance of maintaining relationships. They made everyone feel heard and respected. Without human mediators, old grudges and misunderstandings were surfacing. Species that had traded together for generations suddenly remembered ancient insults and cultural differences. The delicate web of galactic commerce began falling apart. The problems reached the council chambers when fights broke out during a routine session. Representative Sharpclaw of the Predator Alliance accused the Herbivore Coalition of being weak and foolish. In response, Ambassador Gentlehoof called the Predators savage and uncivilized. Within minutes, half the council was shouting at the other half. Old arguments about evolution, culture, and species superiority filled the air. Council President Zorthan pounded his gavel, but no one listened. "This is ridiculous," he finally roared, using his authority voice that made everyone stop talking. "We are civilized beings, not primitive animals." "Easy for you to say," snapped Sharpclaw. "Your people float around in energy bubbles thinking you're better than everyone else. At least we don't hunt other sapient beings for sport like your ancestors did, replied another voice from the herbivore section. The shouting started again, even louder than before. Zorthan realized with growing horror that arguments like this had happened before, but someone had always managed to calm things down before they got out of hand. He tried to remember who had done the calming, and a disturbing pattern emerged. In his memories, it was always a human voice that suggested compromises, human words that reminded everyone of their common goals, human patience that let angry species vent their feelings safely. Humans had been the galactic peacekeepers not through force or authority, but through simple, quiet diplomacy. That evening, Zorthan called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The beautiful council chambers felt cold and empty with just a dozen beings instead of the usual hundreds. "We need to find out exactly what roles humans were playing in our society," he announced. "I want a complete analysis of every human position, every human responsibility, every human contribution to galactic civilization." His aide, a efficient mechanical being named Logic Prime, projected a holographic display. Initial analysis shows humans were involved in 73% of interspecies conflict resolution, 68% of technical maintenance operations, 81% of agricultural support systems, and 45% of trade mediation. "How is that possible?" asked Admiral Zethrak. "Humans only made up 12% of the galactic population." "They appear to have taken on support roles that other species found uninteresting or unrewarding," Logic Prime replied. "Jobs that required patience, attention to detail, and willingness to work without recognition." Zorthan stared at the numbers in growing dismay. "They were the glue holding our civilization together." "It appears so, sir. And now the glue is gone." As if to emphasize the point, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. In the distance, explosions lit up the sky as another pirate raid hit a defenseless convoy. The attackers would escape, long before any patrol ships arrived, just as they had been doing for 3 months now. The galaxy's golden age was ending, and no one knew how to stop it. 6 months after humanity's quiet departure, the galaxy's nightmare began. It started with a single distress signal from the edge of known space. Research Station Omega-12, positioned in the dangerous void between galaxies, sent out an automated emergency beacon before going completely silent. Council Admiral Zethrak dispatched a patrol ship to investigate, expecting to find the usual problems: equipment failure, asteroid damage, or maybe pirates. What they found was much worse. The station was gone. Not destroyed in the usual sense, with debris and wreckage floating in space. It had been consumed, torn apart and digested by something that left behind only empty metal shells and strange, geometric scars in the surrounding asteroids. "Commander." Swiftwing of the patrol ship Farsight recorded everything with trembling hands. "The metal looks like it's been eaten," she reported back to headquarters. "Something bit through solid titanium like it was soft cheese, and there are these weird patterns burned into the rocks nearby." "What kind of patterns?" Zethrak asked, over the communication link. "Mathematical symbols, I think. But not from any species we know. They look old, really old." The Admiral felt a chill run through his ethereal form. Ancient mathematical symbols could only mean one thing, but he hoped he was wrong. "Send me all the images immediately and get out of there now." When the photos arrived, Zethrak's worst fears were confirmed. He recognized those symbols from legends and old military files that most people had forgotten. They belonged to the Devourers, machine intelligences from outside the galaxy that had last been seen over 300 years ago. According to the old stories, Devourers were unstoppable. They consumed matter and energy to build more of themselves, spreading across space like a mechanical plague. They had no interest in communication, negotiation, or mercy. They simply ate everything in their path and moved on to the next target. The Admiral rushed to the deep archives beneath the council building, searching through files that hadn't been accessed in decades. What he found made his blood turn cold. Devourers hadn't disappeared 3 centuries ago. They had been contained. A massive quarantine network of automated defense platforms, hidden ships, and early warning systems had been built around the galaxy's edge. For 300 years, this network had kept the Devourers trapped in the empty space between galaxies, preventing them from reaching inhabited worlds. But who had built this network? Who had maintained it for 3 centuries without anyone noticing? The answer was buried in classified files marked with Earth's symbol. Captain Donghyun's military records showed the truth that everyone had forgotten. His ancestor, Captain Jong-su, had first encountered a Devourer scout ship in 2387. The human military had quickly realized that conventional weapons and tactics were useless against the machines. So they had adapted. Human engineers designed new types of weapons specifically for fighting Devourers. Human tacticians developed strategies for containing the threat, rather than trying to destroy it completely. Human soldiers had been secretly fighting this war for 3 centuries, generation after generation, keeping the galaxy safe from an enemy that most species didn't even know existed. The quarantine network was failing now because no one was maintaining it. The automated systems were breaking down, the hidden patrol ships were running out of fuel, and the early warning sensors were going offline one by one, and the Devourers were breaking through. While Admiral Zethrak struggled with this revelation, the rest of the galaxy faced its own cascade of disasters. On the core worlds where the most advanced civilizations lived, basic infrastructure was collapsing in ways that made no sense. The ethereal homeworld of Cianeth experienced its first total power failure in 1,000 years. The Great Meditation, crystals that powered their cities suddenly went dark, leaving billions of psychic beings helpless in the darkness. Chief Engineer Fluxmind of the Ethereal Power Authority stared at the dead crystals in confusion. The harmonic resonance has collapsed, he reported to the Ethereal Council. But that's impossible. These crystals have been stable for millennia. What could cause such a failure? Asked High Mystic Thoughtdeep. According to our records, the harmonic stabilizers were installed 300 years ago by human technicians. They said the crystals needed tuning to reach their full potential. Fluxmind's glowing eyes dimmed with understanding. The humans didn't just install the stabilizers. They maintained them, and now they're gone, Thoughtdeep finished quietly. Similar disasters struck the mechanoid factory worlds. Their great automated production lines, which had built starships and technology for the entire galaxy, began producing defective goods. Computer programs crashed randomly. Robotic workers malfunctioned and quality control systems failed completely. Factory Supervisor Unit 9847 ran diagnostic after diagnostic, but couldn't find the problem. All systems appear functional, he reported to the Mechanoid High Command. But production efficiency has dropped 78%, and defect rates have increased 340%. Explain this malfunction, ordered Prime Director Logic Absolute. The quantum processing cores that coordinate our factories are degrading. They require constant micro-adjustments to maintain peak performance. These adjustments were performed by human computer specialists who understood both our technology and quantum mechanics. Where are these human specialists now? Unit 9847's optical sensors dimmed. Gone. They all left with the Exodus 6 months ago. The Titan worlds faced an even more immediate crisis. Their massive beings needed carefully controlled atmospheres to survive, with precise mixtures of gases that couldn't be found naturally on most planets. The atmospheric processors that maintained these conditions began failing, threatening the lives of billions of Titan citizens. Environmental engineer Rocksteady stood in the main control room of Atmosphere Station Prime, watching critical readings turn red across all his displays. Oxygen levels dropping in sectors 7 through 23, he reported. Carbon dioxide rising beyond safe limits in the northern continent. The atmospheric processors are shutting down one by one. Why? Demanded Governor Mountain Strong, whose massive stone body barely fit through the station's doorways. The quantum atmospheric manipulation systems were designed by human engineers 250 years ago. They've been maintained by human technicians ever since. The systems are incredibly complex, They monitor millions of variables and make constant tiny adjustments to keep our air breathable. Rocksteady pulled up a maintenance schedule on his screen. Look at this. The humans performed maintenance checks every single day. They updated the software weekly, replaced worn components monthly, and completely overhauled the systems annually. Without that maintenance, our people will suffocate, Mountain Strong said grimly. Across the galaxy, similar stories played, out on thousands of worlds. The humans hadn't just been workers and diplomats, they had been the invisible foundation that kept galactic civilization running. They fixed things before they broke, prevented problems before they became crises, and maintained systems that other species took for granted. Chief Engineer Kyung Ho's final report, which had been filed and forgotten 6 months earlier, was finally retrieved from the archives. Council President Zorthan read it with growing horror. Critical systems analysis shows potential cascade failures if human technical support is withdrawn. The report began. Recommendation: establish comprehensive cross-training programs with all species to ensure continued operation of vital infrastructure. The report included detailed warnings about power grid failures, atmospheric system breakdowns, quantum computer instabilities, and agricultural collapse. It predicted exactly what was happening now, 6 months later. When was this report filed? Zorthan asked his aide. 2 days before the humans announced their departure, Logic Prime replied. It was marked as routine technical documentation and archived without review. They knew, Zorthan whispered. They knew this would happen, and they tried to warn us. But the warnings hadn't been dramatic enough to get attention. Humans never made dramatic speeches or demanded emergency meetings. They just filed careful, detailed reports and hoped someone would read them. As the president grappled with this revelation, Admiral Zethrak burst into his office with even worse news. The Devourers have broken through the quarantine, he announced. 3 scout fleets have entered inhabited space. They've already consumed the mining colonies in the Outer Rim. Conservative estimates give us 6 months before they reach the core worlds. Can we stop them? With what? Our conventional weapons are useless against Devourer technology. Our best military strategists have no idea how to fight them. The only species that knew how to contain the Devourers was... He didn't need to finish the sentence. Humanity. The galaxy's golden age was ending not with dramatic battles or political upheaval, but with the quiet collapse of all the small, boring systems that kept civilization functioning. The humans had been right to walk away quietly. They had been the only thing keeping the galaxy from falling apart, and no one had even noticed. Now everyone was noticing, but it was too late. 1 year after humanity's quiet departure, the galaxy burned. Ambassador Velthari stood on the observation deck of her diplomatic ship, watching the Devourer fleet consume the industrial world of Forge Prime below. The massive mechanical entities stripped away the planet's surface layer by layer, turning cities and factories into raw materials for building more of themselves. This was the 17th world, lost in 3 months. The Devourers moved like a slow plague across inhabited space, unstoppable and relentless. Behind them, they left only empty husks of rock floating in space. Any response from the human signals? Velthari asked her communications officer. Nothing, Ambassador. We've detected human energy signatures in at least 40 different star systems beyond the galactic edge, but none of them respond to our messages. They're not even acknowledging that they hear us. Velthari's tentacles curled with frustration. The Galactic Council had authorized her to offer humanity anything they wanted: territory, resources, technology, even leadership positions in the government. But first, she had to find them and convince them to listen. The search had led her team to discover things about humanity that shocked the galaxy. Hidden shipyards in dark nebulae contained vessels that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. Abandoned research stations held weapons designs that could crack planets in half. Secret testing facilities showed evidence of technologies that seemed impossible even by galactic standards. How did we never know about this? Asked Science Officer Humbright, reviewing the data from their latest discovery. These shipyards, are enormous. They could build 1,000 ships at once. Because they didn't want us to know, Velthari replied. Look at the construction dates. Some of these facilities are over 500 years old. Humans have been building this infrastructure since before they joined the galactic community. Commander Scalesharp of their escort vessel joined them on the observation deck. My tactical analysis suggests these weapons could destroy Devourer fleets easily. The energy output readings are off the charts. Why didn't they ever use them? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the archives of an abandoned human research station, they found personal logs from Dr. Yun Seo, a military scientist, who had died 20 years earlier. Day 2047 of the Devourer Containment Project. Her recorded voice spoke from the old computer system. The Council still doesn't know about the true extent of the threat. Admiral Chen argues we should tell them, but I disagree. If the other species knew how close we've come to galactic extinction 17 times in the past century, it would cause panic. The log continued with technical details about weapons testing. The new plasma warheads can eliminate Devourer Scout ships in a single hit. We could probably destroy their entire force if we deployed everything we have. But what would happen afterward? Other species would demand this technology. They'd want to know why we kept it secret. Some would probably try to take it by force. Velthari paused the recording, her mind racing. They were protecting us from ourselves. What do you mean? Asked Humbright. Think about it. If humanity had revealed these weapons, every species in the galaxy would have wanted them. Wars would have started over the technology. The galaxy would have torn itself apart fighting over human military secrets. She restarted the recording. Dr. Yun Seo's voice filled the empty station again. We could conquer the galaxy in a decade if we wanted to. Our ships are faster. Our weapons are stronger. Our technology is centuries ahead of anything the Council species have developed. But what would be the point? Better to help others thrive, to be the foundation that supports the tower rather than the tower itself. The logs revealed the true scope of humanity's hidden activities. For 3 centuries, they had been secretly managing threats that could have destroyed galactic civilization, not just the Devourers, but rogue AI systems, dimensional rifts, plague outbreaks, and solar flares that could have sterilized entire star systems. Captain Inho's military records showed fleet movements that prevented 17 different species from destroying each other through wars. Human ships had appeared at exactly the right time and place to stop conflicts before they escalated, always with explanations that seemed like coincidences. The Molten Empire's invasion fleet suffered engine failures just before they reached crystalline space, Velthari read from the files. The engines were sabotaged by human technical teams who then provided repair assistance, delaying the fleet long enough for diplomats to negotiate a peace treaty. The gaseous collective's attempt to poison the atmosphere of Titan worlds was stopped when their chemical weapons accidentally exploded in storage, read another report. Human emergency response teams just happened to be in the area for training exercises. Over and over the pattern repeated. Humanity had prevented wars, stopped genocides, and eliminated existential threats, all while making it look like luck or coincidence. They had been the galaxy's secret guardians for centuries, but now they were gone, and the carefully maintained balance was collapsing. The search team's next discovery came at a monitoring station on the edge of Devourer space. The facility was ancient by galactic standards but perfectly maintained. Inside, they found evidence of humanity's true military capabilities. These sensor arrays can detect Devourer movements from 3 galaxies away, reported Humbright, studying the massive installations. The early warning system covers a sphere of space bigger than our entire galactic cluster. Commander Scalesharp examined the weapon platforms hidden throughout the system. These aren't just defensive installations, they're staging points for offensive operations. Humanity has been running military campaigns in other galaxies for who knows how long. The logs at this station painted an even more incredible picture. Humanity hadn't just been protecting their own galaxy. They had been part of a vast interstellar network fighting threats across multiple galaxies. The Devourers were just one of many dangers that existed in the dark spaces between stars. Mission. Report Intergalactic Defense Coordination, read one file. Galaxy M47 successfully cleared of entropy swarm. Galaxy M52 still under siege by the Void Hunters. Recommend reinforcement with 3 battle groups. Galaxy M31 reports new threat type. Crystalline entities that consume time itself. Velthari felt dizzy reading the reports. They've been fighting wars across the universe while we argued about trade agreements. No wonder they seemed tired, Scale Sharp observed. They were carrying the weight of protecting multiple galaxies on their shoulders. The most disturbing discovery came in the form of evacuation plans. Detailed files showed that humanity had been preparing for their departure for over 50 years. They had slowly reduced their most critical responsibilities, trained replacement personnel where possible, and built automated systems to handle tasks that couldn't be transferred. They tried to leave us prepared, Velthari realized as she read through the transition protocols. Look at these training programs. They offered to teach other species how to maintain the atmospheric processors, the quantum computers, the agricultural systems. But no one was interested. We all thought it was boring technical work. The aliens had preferred the exciting jobs: exploration, diplomacy, trade negotiations, artistic pursuits. The humans had quietly taken on all the unglamorous but essential work that kept civilization functioning. Request for cross-species technical training program. Read one official document from 10 years earlier. Recommended curriculum includes quantum maintenance, atmospheric management, interspecies conflict resolution, and existential threat assessment. Projected training time, 15 years per specialist. The request had been denied by the Council as unnecessarily complex and costly. As Velthari's team gathered this evidence, the situation back home grew worse. The core worlds were falling one by one to the advancing Devourer fleets. Billions of civilians fled toward the galactic center, but there was nowhere left to run. Emergency. Broadcasts filled the communication networks. This is New Harmony Defense Command. The orbital platforms are failing. We need immediate evacuation for 200 million civilians. Crystalline Fleet Command to any ships in range. Our home system is under attack. Conventional weapons have no effect on the Devourers. Request immediate assistance. Ethereal High Command Emergency Bulletin. All remaining civilians are ordered to the inner worlds. Seaneth has fallen. Repeat, our home world has been consumed. The proud Galactic Council now met in a bunker on a dying world, reduced to fewer than a dozen species. Most of the galaxy's population was either dead or fleeing toward the center, where they would make their final stand. Velthari received the evacuation order while exploring one last human facility. All diplomatic missions are ordered to return immediately, the message read. The Council is implementing final defensive protocols. But as she prepared to leave, her communications officer detected something unusual. Ambassador, I'm picking up a single ship approaching our position. It's human. On the view screen, a sleek vessel approached their location. It was unlike any human ship in the galactic databases, more advanced, more elegant, and somehow more purposeful. This is Commander Yu Jin of the Human Exodus Fleet, came a calm voice over the communication system. I understand you've been looking for us. 18 months after humanity walked away quietly, the galaxy had become a graveyard. Commander Yu Jin materialized on the observation deck of Ambassador Velthari's ship through some kind of teleportation technology that the galactic species had never seen before. She looked exactly like the humans everyone remembered. Average height, simple clothing, unremarkable appearance. But there was something different in her eyes, a depth that spoke of seeing things beyond the edge of known space. You wanted to talk, Yujin said simply, her hands clasped behind her back. I'm listening. Velthari felt the weight of her entire civilization's survival pressing down on her tentacles. Commander, our people are dying. The Devourers have consumed 3/4 of inhabited space. Our weapons are useless against them. Without human help, we'll all be extinct within months. Yujin nodded slowly, as if she had expected this conversation. I know, we've been monitoring the situation. Then why haven't you helped us? Scale Sharp demanded from his position near the tactical displays. You have the technology to stop them. Your weapons could destroy the Devourer fleets easily, Could they? Eugen asked quietly. You've seen our military installations, Red. Our classified files. You know we have the firepower to eliminate the current Devourer incursion. But do you know what would happen next? She moved to the viewing port and looked out at the distant stars. The Devourers aren't a single threat, Commander. They're a symptom of something much larger. In the space between galaxies, there are things that make the Devourers look like children's toys. Entropy swarms that unravel the laws of physics. Void hunters that feed on collapsed stars. Time-eating crystals that can age entire star systems to death in minutes. Velthari felt her blood growing cold. You're saying there are worse things out there? I'm saying we've been fighting them for 3 centuries while you debated trade regulations, Eugen replied without anger, just tired acceptance. The Devourers were contained because we built a quarantine network that spans multiple galaxies. When we left, that network began failing. What you're seeing now is just the beginning. She turned back to face the alien delegation. Every time we eliminated one threat, 2 more appeared to take its place. Every time we built better defenses, the enemy adapted and grew stronger. We realized that we were trapped in an endless war, spending our entire civilization just to keep the darkness at bay. Humbright consulted his datapad nervously. But surely with the combined resources of all galactic species we could... Could what? Eugen interrupted gently. Fight a war that requires species to sacrifice everything they are just to survive? Look at what happened to your civilization when the humans left for just 18 months. How long do you think you could maintain a military campaign that lasts for millennia? The truth hit Velthari like a physical blow. That's why you left. You weren't angry with us. You were tired. Eugen smiled sadly. For 300 years, we carried this galaxy on our shoulders. We prevented wars, maintained technologies, held back existential threats, and mediated disputes. Not because we had to, but because we chose to believe that cooperation was better than domination. She gestured toward the tactical displays showing the advancing Devourer fleets. But cooperation requires that all parties contribute something. We gave our knowledge, our labor, our lives, and our children's lives to keep the galaxy safe. In return, we got comfortable positions in a civilization that took our contributions for granted. We didn't know, Velthari protested. If you had told us, would it have mattered? Eugen asked. Your people are individuals who live for a few centuries at most. Our species thinks in terms of millennia. When we tried to warn you about long-term threats, you dismissed them as theoretical. When we offered to train your people to take over critical systems, you said it was too expensive and time-consuming. She pulled out a small device and projected a holographic star map. This is where humanity has gone. 3 virgin galaxies, completely empty of intelligent life. We're starting over, building new civilizations that understand from the beginning what cooperation actually means. The map showed vast spiral arms filled with human colonies, but also with other species, refugees and volunteers who had joined the human exodus over the past year. We're not alone out there, Eugen continued. Other species have chosen to come with us. The gentlefolk from the agricultural worlds, some of the crystalline engineers, a few gaseous philosophers, even some young ethereals who wanted to learn rather than meditate. But only those who understand that civilization requires everyone to contribute, not just the ones who enjoy the boring work. Scalesharp stepped forward, his warrior's pride warring with desperation. What do you want from us? Resources, territory. We'll give you anything. I don't want anything from you, Eugen replied calmly. I came here to offer you something. A choice. She gestured to the holographic map again. Humanity is preparing for a complete withdrawal from this galaxy. The Devourers are just the beginning. Worse things are coming that will make this look like a minor inconvenience. We've found evidence of threats that could sterilize this entire galactic cluster. But we're offering passage to our new homes for any species that can prove they understand what cooperation means. Not just saying the words, but actually living them. No species gets special treatment. No one is more important than anyone else. Everyone contributes according to their abilities, and everyone benefits according to their needs. Velthari felt hope and despair warring in her hearts. What would we have to prove? That you can work together without human mediators, Eugen answered. That you can maintain complex systems without human technicians. That you can resolve conflicts without human diplomats. That you can defend yourselves without human warriors. She pointed to the advancing Devourer fleets on the tactical display. Right now, the remaining species in this galaxy face a simple choice. You can continue fighting each other over the scraps while the Devourers consume everything, or you can finally learn to cooperate the way humanity tried to teach you for 3 centuries. If you can unite the surviving species, pool your resources, and work together long enough to evacuate your populations in an orderly fashion, we'll provide transport to the new galaxies. But if you spend your final months arguing about who's in charge and who gets the best evacuation spots, we'll leave you to face the consequences alone. Scale Sharp's claws extended in frustration. You're condemning billions of innocent people to death because their leaders were too proud to listen. Eugen's expression didn't change. I'm offering billions of people a chance at life if their leaders can finally learn to listen. The choice is yours. She began to fade as the teleportation effect activated again. You have 60 days to prove you can cooperate. After that, the human evacuation fleet moves on to the next galaxy, and you'll face whatever comes next on your own. Wait, Velthari called out. How will we contact you? You won't, Eugen replied as she became translucent. If you succeed in uniting your people and organizing a proper evacuation, we'll contact you. If you fail, she shrugged sadly. The universe is vast, and there are other civilizations out there that might be ready to learn what this one refused to understand. The last thing they saw was Eugen's tired smile. For what it's worth, I hope you make the right choice. Humanity has always believed that cooperation is better than domination. But cooperation can't be forced. It has to be chosen freely. Then, she was gone, leaving the alien delegation alone with their impossible task. Velthari stared at the tactical display showing the approaching Devourer fleets, then at the star map showing the scattered refugee populations across the galaxy. 60 days to unite dozens of species that had been fighting each other for over a year. 60 days to organize the evacuation of trillions of beings. 60 days to prove that galactic civilization could finally learn the lesson humanity had been trying to teach for 3 centuries. Do you think we can do it? Asked Humbright quietly. Velthari looked around at her small team. Representatives of species that had been enemies just months ago, now working together out of desperation. Maybe that was how cooperation had to start. Not with grand speeches or noble ideals, but with simple necessity and the recognition that survival required everyone to work together. I don't know, she answered honestly. But for the first time since this crisis began, we have a chance. A real chance. She activated the communication system to contact the remnants of the Galactic Council. This is Ambassador Velthari with an urgent message for all surviving species. I have news about humanity, and a proposal that could save us all. Behind them, the Devourer fleets continued their slow advance toward the galactic core. But ahead of them, barely visible at the edge of sensor range, human ships waited in the darkness between stars. Watching, hoping, ready to offer salvation to a galaxy that might finally be ready to learn what cooperation truly meant. The choice, as Eugen had said, was theirs to make.